What's going on, Houston? This is criminal defense attorney Corey Roth. Music in the background is One More Time by Daft Punk, which just broke up today. This song and some current events have made me want to talk to you about a problem, a situation that I see occurring throughout Texas pretty frequently, and that is what's called a welfare check, a consensual encounter with the police, and sometimes the police exceed the scope of that power. You might be familiar with the situation up in Plano, Texas of Reese. I'm forgetting the kid's name right now, but the young African-American man in Plano, Texas, who was walking home without a jacket on a very, very cold night in Plano, Texas. Snow late at night. Someone called the police for a welfare check, and the police come out, and this is what they see.
Are you trying to get home? You sure? You need a ride somewhere? Hey, look, we just want to make sure you're all right. We just want to make sure you're all right. Sir, you need to talk to us, okay? Sir.
Good, bro.
Can you calm down? All right? Sir.
Don't touch me.
Sir, look, we just want to talk to you. All right?
Good. I'm on the way home. I'm straight.
Okay.
Where the fuck I'm going?
Okay, but you're walking in the middle of the road.
I understand that. My bad. I'm not in the What's up, home?
We just trying to figure out where you're going.
Home. I just said that.
Oh,
Oh, you okay then?
watch out, man.
Where's home at?
Do you want us to just give you...
I do this every night, literally. I'm straight.
Okay. You ain't cold or nothing?
No.
With that cheap shirt on?
Yeah, I'm good.
What's your name, man? Huh? You don't know? Can you just stop and talk to us for a minute? Do you mind? Do you mind just talking to us for a minute? Just talk to us for a minute. Just talk to us for a minute.
I ain't gonna put my hand on female. Please don't touch me.
Okay. I'm just trying to get your attention, okay? We're just trying to make sure you're okay.
Don't touch me.
Trying to make sure you're okay. We're trying to make sure you're okay. Sir?
So what I saw right there was pretty disgusting by the police officers, plural, and incredible, really restraint and behavior by that young 18-year-old man. There's a lot of ways where citizens can interact with police. We've heard of arrest warrants, right, where a judge said you have permission to go detain that person. Probable cause, right, where an officer has probable cause to detain you. Another situation is the welfare check, right? It's considered a consensual encounter. A welfare check is where an officer is called to check on the well-being, safety of a person, generally. Just like, anybody can come knock on your door. It's a consensual encounter, right? It cannot be motivated by the officer's suspicion or investigation of a crime. And I'll read off exactly a motion that I successfully used before to win a motion to suppress. Just like anybody can come up and ask you to roll down your window or knock on your door, or walk up to you in the shopping mall or a market and try to speak to you. An officer is free to do that as well. But just like you're free to ignore some random stranger walking up to you, you're free to ignore a police officer. Now, this isn't legal advice about a particular situation. It's just a general recitation of the law. So in this case, in Plano, Texas, the police were called by some concerned citizen saying, hey, there's a black man walking down the street not wearing a jacket. And you could see that it was snowing, it was icy, it was, Winter Storm Uri was going on up in Plano. And the female officer gets up, hey, what are you doing? Are you okay? What's going on? And the young man says, yeah, I'm fine. Leave me alone. I'm just walking home. She keeps hounding him. She keeps walking behind him. She's ordering him to stop. right? She's ordering him. Doesn't sound very consensual, does it? And then we see at least one other cop car drive up with his lights on, cut off the young man. And he's walking away, and he's saying, "I'm going home. I'm just going home. I'm fine. I'm not cold." And then they detain him. They arrest him. I cut it off right before that for walking across the street, even though they made it impractical, if not impossible, for him to remain on the sidewalk. And there might have been some dangerous conditions on the sidewalk. So, like I said, there's many different ways where you can have an interaction with law enforcement. I had a case several years ago that I won where the police claimed it was a consensual encounter, but it wasn't really, because they were motivated to search for a crime. And when my client said he was okay, he didn't need any assistance, that's when that encounter should have ended. That's when a reasonable person would have walked away. And that's when a reasonable officer should have walked away. But so often we see police let their egos get in the way and their misunderstanding of the law. They spend one semester in the police academy, and some of that time they learn the criminal code, but they don't learn, nearly as much as a lawyer or a judge. And a lot of them are really arrogant. They don't understand what they don't know. So in this particular case that I had, and what I would have done if I represented this young man in Dallas, I would have said, look, the state's alleged that they stopped my client, and that it was justified under the community caretaking exception of the warrant requirement. The community caretaking function, also known as a welfare check, is totally divorced from the detection, investigation, or acquisition of evidence relating to the violation of a criminal statute. So we see in this video, right, where there probably was a legitimate welfare check purpose at the initiation, at the beginning of their investigation, their encounter with this young man. But by the end, that completely disappeared, and they were just motivated to investigate this person for some sort of crime. So a police officer may not properly invoke his community caretaking function if he is primarily motivated by non-community caretaking purpose. So at a certain point, what is an okay community caretaking interaction can develop into an excessive use of that community caretaking function, right? So the community caretaking function allows an officer to stop and assist individuals whom a reasonable person, given the totality of the circumstances, would believe is in need of help. Whether an officer properly invoked the community caretaking function requires a two-step analysis, and my job as your attorney is to conduct that analysis, conduct an independent investigation, and conduct that analysis. And if I believe that your constitutional rights were violated, I'm going to let a judge decide that for us. And if the judge rules in our favor, more often than not, the case is going to be dismissed. If the judge doesn't rule in our favor, there's another law that we can talk about in another video that will allow a jury to potentially exclude unlawfully seized evidence. So the first part of the analysis is whether the officer was primarily motivated by a community caretaking purpose. And in this case, the situation with the boy in Dallas, Plano, it probably was, but it exceeded that scope eventually. The second is whether the officer believed that the individual needs help is reasonable. Was that a reasonable belief? So the determination of whether the officer's belief was reasonable, whether the person was in need of assistance, the court is to consider several factors, 4 non-exclusive factors. The nature and level of the distress exhibited by the individual. So with the Dallas boy, he was exhibiting zero distress. And that's actually what the judge wrote on my motion in a different case. None. I don't know if you can see that, but she wrote none. And this was a judge who is notorious for not granting motions to suppress. The location of the individual. Here, this person's in a very nice neighborhood in Plano, Texas, but it's late at night. And so that's kind of what the third factor is, whether the individual was alone or had access to assistance independent of that offered by the officer. One could argue it's late at night. Well, we don't know exactly what time it is, but it's nighttime. It's dark. Nobody's out because of the weather. That probably leans in favor of the police. And then the fourth factor is to what extent the individual, if not assisted, presented a danger to himself or others. I don't think he presented a danger to others at all, and definitely, might actually have presented a danger to himself if he were to slip and fall on the ice. And that's actually what the police chief said their justification was. But we didn't see him having any trouble walking. So, that's just one example of a police-citizen encounter. I understand that there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat, but we have to rely on, the courts have to rely on what the officer claimed his reasoning was. If you or a loved one have been charged with a crime, or you're being investigated, please give me a call. My name is Corey Roth, R-O-T-H. My website is www.attorneyroth.com. And my phone number is 832-819-5290. Take care, everyone. Be safe, and stay out of trouble.